Hello again, everybody, and welcome to our MPTV Coaches Show. Ryan Lindley here with Eric Myers. Another great week of athletics here in District 709. And Eric, starting off, girls basketball.
Yeah, so girls basketball had a really big weekend. Almost seemed to figure it out. We've been talking here for a couple of weeks. What's going to happen after this Christmas slump? And they kind of really figured it out. It started coming into their shell. Some leaders are stepping up. Had a big weekend with a 63-35 win over Metamora. Moves them into third place there in the Middle Atlantic Conference. And then a big buzzer-beating 41-38 win over Galesburg. Tatum Lamprick there had 18 points versus Metamora, and Ellie Van Manen hit that buzzer-beating three. Found her confidence right there. If anybody's read Dave Kindred's thing on Facebook or social media, you know that he poetically wrote that she finally got open to beat Galesburg there. And big games. We're recording this on a Wednesday, snowy Wednesday outside, but they're going to play number 2 ranked Peoria Notre Dame Wednesday night. So in the kitchen. Yeah. Very unique name for a
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously, that game will have occurred, folks, by the time you watch this. Maybe, if we edit this, we should give Eric the credit, who's done most of the work on editing. We may put a score up along the bottom line here.
Put a little bottom thing when we knock them off, right? So
absolutely.
Notre Dame's led by Bradley coach Brian Wardle's daughter, so it should be a very dynamic game.
Absolutely, 100%.
So let's switch sides. Boys basketball, what do we got to run on there?
Yeah, boys basketball, off to a good run. Defeated Canton on Saturday night, 64-29. They've been playing really well, put together several consecutive wins. Obviously, then last night, a little bit of a tough one. They played highly rated Metamora. They lose 62-45. The positive of it is that they got better each quarter in terms of total number of points scored. Metamora just so efficient, so effective. I was blown away by the way they moved the ball, and you just saw that they're a tough team to defend when they've got all their options open.
Yeah, all their options open, and in all reality, the game was pretty much over by the end of the first quarter, first half at the end, but couldn't make our shots from behind the arc. That kind of hurt us, but like you said, Metamora, a very poised team's probably going to make a pretty deep run, hopefully, as long as they don't run any postseason troubles.
Yeah, I said on the broadcast that I thought they were in that top 3 or 4 as far as odds to make it to the Final Four, time to even make it to a title game, which last year they finished second. So, odds are that they got a chance to do just that again, or maybe even win it this year.
Yeah, well, hats off to them. It's always nice to see Mid-Atlantic teams go far in the postseason.
Absolutely.
Switching gears to Scholastic Bowl, so going from the court to the Knowledge Center. They reached the semifinals of our Mid-Atlantic Conference meet on Saturday, and they competed the Mid-Atlantic champ Dunlap on Tuesday. And I think you actually had an opportunity to sit down with Coach Zoss this morning, didn't you?
I did. I had a chance to sit down with Coach Zoss this morning and talk a little bit about Scholastic Bowl. I feel like it's one of those things that is an IHSA sport, or at least IHSA activity, however you want to phrase that a lot of people don't know a lot about. So we had a chance to sit down with Coach Zoss, and he gave us kind of the ins and outs of Scholastic Bowl. So let's take a look at that interview. Welcome back here to our MPTV Coaches Show. We're here with our Scholastic Bowl coach, Ben Zoss. And Coach, let me start with this one. A lot of people may not totally know what goes into Scholastic Bowl. Just kind of give us the rundown. If somebody was going to show up to a match, what does Scholastic Bowl kind of look like?
So Scholastic Bowl is an academic competition. It's 5-on-5. It's a nice IHSA activity. And kids are asked questions from just all different categories. A lot of them that you would have in school, but there's also some pop culture and current event type questions, and you're competing in generally a 20-question match, and just trying to answer more questions and score more points than the other team at the end of the match. So.
All right. Well, and from a coaching standpoint, what's kind of your approach? Take us through maybe what you do in practice. What's a match coaching situation? Kind of just run through that for me.
Yeah, that can look differently at times. So depending on the tournament you're playing in, the question set you have, sometimes we know in advance certain companies or certain tournaments, like the IHSA tournament has a set number of questions per category. So you can kind of anticipate we're going to have 4 math questions. There's a little bit more strategy. Maybe if you don't have a math person in at all times, you need to sub one. If you notice that there's still a couple math questions left to be asked, or science, or whatever. Other times you don't really know the category breakdown, and you kind of just want to have a variety of kids on the team at the time that can, or in the game, that can answer different questions. You want to make sure you have a lit person if you have one, and a science person. As far as preparation, we try and order practice sets from a company that provides a lot of the questions. There are lists. Madeline Zoss is my daughter. She's the captain of our team this year, she's done a good job of making Quizlet sets from the list. So we'll try and do a Quizlet at the beginning of practice. And one thing that kind of changed what we've done this year is we, at the beginning of the season, kind of sat down and scheduled our practices. Basically, we're going to practice this, this, and this. And so we'll start off with some like fast, rapid response questions, and then we'll get into maybe like a theme for a little while, and then we'll have a practice match. And so I think it's made our practices more engaging. We're not just sitting there answering questions from a set the whole time, but trying to break things up. And the kids have seemed to respond well to that. So
awesome. Talk to me a little bit. I know you had conference meet last weekend. Just kind of how's this season going?
So we did have conference. We had a really good day. We advanced to the semifinals and played Metamore in the semifinals. It came down. We lost by 50, which kind of sounds like a lot. It really came down to the last question. We could have advanced. Dunlap won the conference. They're a strong team every year. We played them really well at times. When we have all of our team together, and our kids are involved in a lot of activities, so sometimes we have band going on, sometimes there's orchestra. But when we have our whole team together, we're a pretty competitive team. We have some good science players. We have some good math. We're really strong in social studies. So when the whole group's together, I feel like we can compete in a match with anyone in the area, right now. But it depends on the question sometimes too. Sometimes it's luck of the draw. It seems like you miss a toss-up and it goes over to a bonus. It's like a pop culture bonus, and all the kids kind of sigh because those are the ones they love and they get those. So it's just sometimes it's luck of the draw. But our kids are really competing, and like I said, on any given night, it seems like we have a pretty strong team. So
awesome. And then the last question for you, just kind of looking ahead, like what's the schedule left for the rest of the year? What are you kind of anticipating the rest of the season?
So we play in a Tuesday night league called the Peoria Area League. It's about we have 18 schools this year. Mid-Illini Conference, some of the schools outside the Peoria area. So we still have a couple weeks left to go on that. There's a Masonic state tournament, so the Masonic lodges throughout the state of Illinois sponsor a tournament, and you play in a sectional. If you win your sectional, you advance to state, and there's actually quite a few teams at state. The Masons do an awesome job with that tournament. They pay all the entry fees for every single team. There is cash prizes for placing in the top 4 at the sectional tournament. If you advance to state, you get another $100. They do an awesome deal. We have advanced to the state tournament a couple times in the past few years, and it's awesome for the kids to see because you're playing with a lot of the suburb schools. It's an eye-opening experience because you'll think you have a pretty good team, and then you'll play like a Stevenson or Homewood Flossmoor or somebody, and you realize that there's a whole other world of Scholastic ball out there. So we have the Masonic tournament, and then the IHSA tournament is in March, and they have a regional and sectional and state tournament too. And that's always tough competition too because our region is pretty big. We go all the way. Usually Quincy is in it, Springfield. So it's a lot of schools. And it's pretty tough there are 4 regional sites, and then you go to the sectional, and it's pretty tough to advance out of the sectional. And Scholastic Bowl is still a 2-class activity in the IHSA. So to make it, to sectional is a huge accomplishment, and then if you make it to state, that's a big deal. You're one of the best teams in the state. So that's what's still to come. And Scholastic Bowl can be kind of a long season. You can really start whenever you want in October, schedule matches every Saturday if you want. A lot of teams do that. So it can be kind of a long season. We're still kind of in the middle of it right now, but still quite a few matches to play.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
And stick around, folks. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for having me, Coach Lindley. I appreciate it.
Wow, so Coach Zoss has a lot to say right there, and some emerging leaders there, and it's kind of interesting they have their own little conference there, but then they've expanded a little bit to include some of these other schools. that are slightly outside the Mid-Atlantic Conference, but and then you have the Masonic thing. You got all kinds of happening at Scholastic Bowl. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, I mean, he's pretty pleased with where this season is. I mean, he mentioned it's a long season. They still got essentially, a little bit over a month to go. And, I mean, they had 2 all-conference members at the tournament, the conference tournament. They give away an all-conference afterwards. So Theo DeLong and Madeline Zoss were both all-conference as a result of their performance there. So, I mean, I think there's a chance you could see our Scholastic Bowl team making a run in a regional or maybe even a sectional.
Positive things. And you've had an opportunity to be a judge, right?
I have, yeah.
So could you answer all those questions truthfully?
No. There's a lot more science and math than the English teacher here would really be comfortable with.
Yeah, it's kind of like, are you smarter than a 5th grader? Or are you smarter than a high school kid? Most of us probably are not at this point. We're just not in our daily lives, but great job.
I'll tell you what, though, I learn a lot every time I moderate Scholastic Bowl because there's stuff that's in math that I haven't looked at since high school that every once in a while, like, the neurons fire up here. I'm like, I do remember that.
It was their glimpse of imagination, but great job to our Morton Scholastic Bowl team. So swim dive, still gearing up for that Mid-Atlantic Conference meet that's going to be happening here on February 4th at Pekin. So keep your eyes tuned for that. We'll try to get you as much information on that as possible. And then switching gears, boys bowling competed, right?
Yeah, boys bowling competed at sectionals. They went down to Collinsville. As a team, they didn't make it. The bowling setup is kind of interesting. There's a pool of like at-large potential state qualifiers that could end up, like if there's, I guess somebody that doesn't get a chance to make it for whatever reason. Nick Orzel is in that pool, so he had a good run. As a team, didn't make it to state, but for the first opportunity for a school to field a bowling team, making it all the way to sectionals, I think is pretty good.
I think it's pretty good too right there. So, and the girls team's also on the flip side. They're on the back end of their season. Another weird thing about how the teams work out, but they're actually gearing up for their postseason matches that are going to be happening here fairly soon. So keep your eyes for those happening on Morton social media. What about our Potters wrestling team?
Potters wrestling, like really good. Hosted the conference meet this weekend. They took 3rd overall. Harrison Day first at 106 pounds. But I mean, you look at the Mid-Illini, in all honesty, you look at the wrestling in the Mid-Illini. I mean, Washington is a state and arguably even national powerhouse. Canton is good year in and year out. So to be 3rd place in wrestling in the Mid-Illini is really an awesome finish. Yeah,
I mean, no, hats off to our Potters wrestlers right there. And there was some big news, right? Our dance team competed at sectionals where they finished 3rd, which means they're going to advance to the state competition in Bloomington this weekend, which is pretty awesome right there.
Yeah, once again, a first as far as,
we can tell.
Yeah, I mean, the school, I think, I talked to Coach Byer, I think she said they've competed in IDTA, which is like the Illinois Dance Teachers Association or something along those lines in the past, but they've never been part of the IHSA competition. They hadn't competed IDTA since the 90s, I believe. So this is the first IHSA competitive team ever in school history. Only like other competitive team in school history was 20 some odd years ago, and so they're going to IHSA state finals this weekend in Bloomington.
So congrats, ladies, on that. We'll be cheering for you. So, Coach, you got any final thoughts?
Just again, another very successful week. One thing I will note is a lot of home basketball coming up in the next 2 weeks. We've got girls basketball home twice this weekend. Pekin on Friday, Limestone on Saturday. Pink night in the Potter Dome on Friday night, so great cause there. And then boys basketball, they finished their season with 4 straight home games.
Yeah, so that's what happens when we spend all those December games on the road, right? You get a lot of home games at the back end of your season when your team's finally starting to click and preparing for your postseason. So that's it for us. But if you would like, share, subscribe, whatever you would like to do, is not to mention, come out to the Potter Dome. As Coach Lindley just said, there are lots of games happening in the next couple weeks here. As most of our winter sports are starting to prepare for their final push into postseason competition. So be sure to check us out.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.